Welcome back to Chapter 3, and we're talking about quality. The first part of what we talked about related to kind of the basic tenements of quality service, how we define it. 3 simple words. I hope you remember. Do you? How do we define quality service? And what exactly is a moment of truth? What happens when we deliver a moment of truth? And what are some of those powerful ways we can learn? Because we really should get this. And we need some things to really grab a hold of. What is quality of service? How do we deliver exceptional quality service? So how do we have that strong foundation of great marketing, which is taking care of people? Employees, donors, volunteers, owners, and our external guests. So we left off talking about a way and a process from which to wrap our arms around and have a theoretical construct to build an experience of high quality for people. And Clausen and Knuscha's 5-phase model that you may have heard of in other classes really comes into play here, as it clearly defines an experience as a 5-part system that interrelates and happens in leisure services. These authors back in the 60s talked about an outdoor recreation experience and said that everybody who participates in outdoor recreation, really it's not just about when they're in the out of doors. There are elements beforehand and after that certainly play a factor. Well, we have since really learned and understood that that takes and holds true for every hospitality, leisure, tourism, food service, event, lodging experience that we will ever provide to our guests. And for some of us, that time at different phases may be very small, and for others of us in our industry, that time in those phases is incredibly long. So this framework of the stages of a leisure experience really provides for me a solid foundation in how we should be thinking about our industry, how we should be thinking about the experiences we create, and how we blend together marketing, which tends to be this outside element of an organization, and start to help it be infused in everything we do in an agency and an organization. So Clausen and Knuscha said those 5 phases are not just about the destination. It starts with anticipating that experience, then literally traveling to, having the destination experience, traveling from the experience, and then reflecting back or having a recollection phase of the experience. And we could take anything that you and I have ever experienced in our field, and we could easily see and understand how these work. So let's just take a few minutes and talk about each one of these steps. It is so important in the delivery of an HTM kind of experience that we want to spend a few minutes on each. And I want you to think about organizations you work for again, or have, or want to, and how they're addressing those 5 phases. We have seen some movement. 10 years ago when I talked about this theory, and we had examples in class, we had very little in several of the categories. Today we at least have some. So positive movement, that's good, but we have a long way to go. And the only way that'll happen is if you decide to operate your hospitality, tourism, event, recreation, food service, lodging organization, applying the principles that you learn. So as we move forward, anticipation is what marketers typically understand and deliver. The anticipation phase of an experience is all about all of the marketing communication that we send out. We want to get people thinking about having an experience with us, and marketing has typically always focused at getting people to do that. You know, we build our marketing on an AIDA model, which any communication we send out thinks about AIDA: attention, interest, desire, and then action. So our goal is to get people and get their attention, to develop interest and desire, and then eventually act. And the act phase gets them to commit to coming to us. So naturally, marketing communication is designed at doing that. So brochures, advertisements, billboards, flyers, websites, telephone skills that we'll talk about later. So hold that thought. But all of those things we do get people before they've made the commitment to come to us. So again, that phone call is before they may have decided it's us or somebody else to go to. The website they look at, the social media they're reviewing, the quality evaluations, the brochures, right? The advertisements that we send out, all of those things form an opinion and help people decide if it's us or it's not going to be us. So marketing communication generally is responsible for anticipation phase, but I would argue the quality of the delivery of the experience impacts that because it's what people remember and it's what they might read about, etc. So as we move forward, think about all of the ways we reach out and communicate, whether it's in public relations, it's a delivery piece, it's a Facebook site, it's a website, right? All of the ways we could go on and on with examples. So travel to, then, is an often missed step of the 5-phase process. We know historically travel to meant the actual travel to. You physically needed to go from the anticipation phase to the destination. So it might be you going to work out in the morning and you've made a choice instead of studying or watching TV or doing something that you're going to go work out. So you've made that commitment, but you still have to get there. So you had anticipation phase, you saw something that sparked you, your tennis shoes in the corner, your alarm clock went off, something, right, got you ready to go. And before you arrive to do that workout, you're in that physical phase. Now that might be 5 minutes or 20 minutes, it might be longer, to get actually from thinking about it, committing to doing. Conversely, you're in the travel to physical phase, maybe 24 hours. You want to go on a spring break experience or your family's traveling somewhere. By the time you actually make the commitment to go and you leave your home and you arrive at your destination, a resort in the Caribbean or down to Florida to Disney, that might have taken you 24 hours or 12 hours, but a length of time. Well, we know in the industry that I don't care if that's 5 minutes or 24 hours. All of the things that happen in between those two times, when you committed to when you get there, impacted your experience. So if we ignore that time as a service provider, we are absolutely impacting the quality of our delivery of our experience. If the traffic was bad in your 5-minute drive, if it was congested, if there was road construction, if it was raining, if you were rerouted, if there was an accident, if you ran out of gas. I mean, there could be a zillion things that happen in that little 5 minutes that could impact your arrival and your experience of what you're participating in. And then we certainly know in the 24-hour experience, everything, because you need everything, transportation issues, airline issues, right? Rental cars, taxis, trains, all of the modes of transportation. Again, the same traffic issues, but there's food and beverage issues, there's housing issues in between there. There may even be attractions that you stop at, but all of those things have impacted by the time you get to us. If you've ever worked at a front desk and you've checked a guest in, you see it on their face. The travel to may have been time at an office, right, for the day before they checked in. They've been traveling all day long and it's midnight and they're exhausted, right? All of those things impact that travel too. Over time, however, and I don't talk about it a lot in the textbook like this, over time I've really looked at this as a huge opportunity in marketing delivery and service delivery and operations delivery to think about these moments in between there. And that anticipation to actually getting there really isn't just about the physical travel too, it's also about the emotional travel too. And I think there's more interest, for me at least, to start thinking about this travel to in two distinctly different ways. The travel to physical, we can help with better directions and signage and scavenger hunts along the way, and we can help with partnering up with businesses along the route so you could have a 20% discount at a food and beverage facility. You could do, again, and have service provisions along the way. It's what Disney does at the airport now, where you just tag your bag before you leave your home destination, and you go to Disney, and the bag arrives in your room. You don't go to the baggage carousel after your plane ride. You hop on a coach that Disney has special for you right at the airport, and your bag actually just gets to your room. That's assisting with the travel too. Those kinds of examples we're seeing more and more. The emotional travel too is where we have, I think, a real huge opportunity as well. Meaning you have made a mental commitment to participate in some activity, and you haven't started your physical travel to that place, but there's a distance in time that you're mentally engaged. And I'd say to you right now, if you have a vacation planned or a special experience with a friend or a family member coming up, you're already invested in that. You know, a weekend, 4 weekends from now, that you've had concert tickets bought for 6 months. You're running a race that you committed to a year ago. You have a vacation planned with your family that may be planned from last summer or may have been planned for years, but you are emotionally engaged in that experience already. And that's where I think we've missed the opportunity to date. We have a few examples in our field, but we could do a lot more. So the whole idea of Travel Too is split those two up. Think about what organizations are doing physically to help you get there, but think of how they're engaging you emotionally along the way. I go back to an example, and my son is a teenager today, but he was 5 years old, and he is the youngest of 3 children, and he had watched his older sisters play soccer, and he sat through, as you could probably relate to, many soccer games on the sidelines, but he would be watching them and wanting to play, and he saw them put on their recreation jersey from our city Parks and Rec department and flip it from gold and maroon, and he saw them buy shoes and get their soccer balls, and he had watched that for several years. Well, he couldn't wait to actually get to play, and he was 5 years old, and I'll never forget the day that I went down to our city offices and signed him up and wrote the check and filled out the application, because even though everybody else was doing it online, they yet weren't doing it online to register. So I had to go down there and do it manually, which is a whole other story. But I'll never forget when I came home and I said to him, "Guess what, buddy? You are signed up for soccer." And he was so excited. And he went to the garage and grabbed the soccer ball, and he grabbed his sister's cleats from the basement and put them on, and he got the soccer ball, and he went to the drawer in their bedroom and pulled out their jersey, and he put it on, and he just wore the clothes, and he was so pumped up. Well, guess how long it was until that soccer season started? 4 more weeks, right? I signed him up, but he was in it. And I'll never forget that moment, because I knew this theory and I thought a lot about this theory, but I just watched this little passionate young man, little kid, just get so fired up about playing soccer. And he actually slept in his clothes that night and woke up the next day, and he was playing soccer again. So guess how long it took, though, that Parks and Rec department to actually talk to him about, or talk to me about him playing soccer. I'd like to say it was the next day, but it wasn't until less than a week before the start of the season where we got a call from a coach, and the coach said, "I'm your new coach. Practice is going to be at 5 on Wednesday," or whatever time it was at the time. "We'll see you there." And that was it. So that was directed at the parent, which is good. It's informative. It does what it's supposed to. It's feature-based, right? But what kind of benefit were we looking for? And what opportunity they had, because they already knew about us. We had all our registration information. They had my phone number. They had my email address. They had my snail mail address. And if you take a step back and you think about the needs of the market, what do you think that 5-year-old needed, or what do you think the old mom needed, right, to really make this an exceptional experience? And that really doesn't cost a lot of money, and maybe not even a lot of time, but it does take brainstorming and thinking about doing things differently. You know, they've always done it that way. You registered, week beforehand, we put you on a team, we got you your team, functional, functional, functional. Well, if I asked that Parks and Rec department, why are you doing what you're doing? I venture to think they would say, We want to influence young people. We want them to socialize. We want them to have fun. We want them to be engaged and live happy, healthy lives as part of a team, and on and on and on. I hope why would be really strong, but their why and their delivery operationally do not match. I hope you're with me. But let's just brainstorm for a second all the things they could have done to address our needs, because he was already engaged. He was in the experience. They were just not in it with him. So they could have sent him a quick little YouTube video on, here's how you learn to dribble, because you already know the 5-year-old isn't going to know how to dribble, let alone pay attention. So they're already there. Why not? Or here's the kind of equipment, an email that says, here's the kind of equipment that you might want to look at obtaining, but we'll have it available at practice, so you don't need to buy it. Here's the weather report coming up, so here's what's appropriate to wear. Here are videos of soccer players, and watch the game being played so they can get excited. There are so many things they could do to help us be better prepared and better engaged in the experience with them. So I want you to think of an example or examples of times people have been there with you along the way. We always pick on Disney in a good way because they really are exceptional at so many things related to marketing, and certainly about the quality of the experience. And one of the things they do is actually send things to people in advance. I'll never forget the first DVDs I got. I had booked a Disney vacation, and I got DVDs in the mail on every one of their parks. Well, how brilliant was that? Because guess who wanted to watch the DVDs? The littler people in my life. And guess what they became? Marketing experts about every one of their parks. They didn't even know about Blizzard Beach, but they knew about Blizzard Beach after those videos because they were engaging and lively, and they were like a Disney cartoon or a Disney movie, all their marketing materials. It was brilliant. It was brilliant. And today, again, that customizable approach that they do, and I shared in a past video, it's really, really brilliant. But why can't we all do that? And why can't we be really great at this travel too? One of my friends, I talk about these 5 phases often, as crazy as that is, right? How'd you like to go to dinner with me? I'm talking about the 5 phases of a leisure experience. But it really is fascinating because it gives a construct, and again, a base of something to grab to help us be better at defining our why and tying in operations and marketing together and integrating. So I'm with a friend, and I've talked about these 5 phases for many years, and just a couple years ago she sent me an example by email. She said, you're not going to believe it, but I finally saw an example of that travel too. And she's a marathon runner, and for anybody listening to this, if you're a runner, you commit, you're anticipating that, and people get you literature maybe a year in advance, but certainly months in advance, depending on the length. If you're a marathon runner, it might be a year. Half marathon might be a year. 5K, maybe you don't have that long of a commitment in advance, but maybe not. Maybe it's your first 5K, and you're going to spend months engaged in that experience. So the actual travel too, from commitment again until you run that race, can be a month or two, or it can be a year, or maybe even multiple. So emotionally, you're engaged in that, but very physically, you're engaged in that experience too, because you're having to train and become prepared for that race. So she's a marathon runner, and she sent me an example in the mail of the first race out of all she had done over the years that finally started to talk to her in between committing and running. And it was an email directed to her. They sent her an email once a month. She was running a full marathon once a month about different aspects of the race to help her be prepared. And let's just think about it for 1 minute. What would a runner want to know and learn about? And you, the running expert company that's putting on this race, expert runner, whether I'm first time or I'm 10th time, what kind of information could we come together on? Because I need it, you have it, and I'm either finding it on my own or not getting it, or you could be the service provider to make and again deliver beyond my expectations, because I don't think you're going to do it because nobody's doing it. So her first email, it was one email, and then subsequently they became more sophisticated, and eventually in that same race, just this last year, she got a monthly email from them in advance because she had booked that race 6 months out. Because if you book out farther, you get a discounted rate for the race. So how smart is that? I'm going to save money. But if that race company doesn't do anything with that information, shame on them. They knew about me 6 months ago. They should be talking and engaging, so we're in this together. So fun things again about housing, where to stay, what to visit, what to do when you're there. Your race is only 5 hours, right? There's other things that you may want to experience in the area. But how about training tips? You know where I am. I'm 3 months before a race. What should I be working on? What should I be thinking about? What should I be eating? How should I be behaving? What other kinds of things can you help me be a better runner? What other things can you help me have a great experience with you when we go to that race? I used this example in class once, and a student said, I just got one of those emails, and this company actually told me what kind of Gatorade they were going to serve during the race. So I said to the class, I go, why was that really neat? And everybody kind of looked blankly, and most weren't marathon runners, but this student chimed up. He goes, I want to tell you why that was neat. He said, because they talked about blue Gatorade being served in water. And then I could train drinking blue Gatorade, because there'd be nothing worse running your 18th mile and only having or being shocked by blue Gatorade when you don't even like blue Gatorade or you've never had blue Gatorade. So something as detailed as, here's what we're serving on the course so you can have a better race experience. And he thought that was an exceptional example. He felt the difference. He knew, because he had ran other races, that they were taking care of him and they anticipated all of his needs. So this thing about travel too, it may be this big in the textbook. I want it to be this big in your thought process, because this has power to help our organizations and help us be better service providers, better experience deliverers, and get closer to our why and our delivery, which we have huge opportunity. So when we talk about travel too, again, remember it's the emotional and the physical side, and here are some examples of what we could do, but let's be in the experience with people. They're in it whether we want to be or not, but we already invited them to be in it. We sent the marketing material to get them to commit, and we wait to talk to them or deal with them until they arrive at the front door. No more. We are going to do things in this stage and be better service providers. It gives us a framework, and it's a huge opportunity. Take advantage of it. So when we look at the ways people communicate during that phase, it's becoming more and more plentiful. Just recently I took my kids to a Pentatonix concert, and here was a simple email they sent ahead of time, which included weather forecasts, which was great because we had to stand outside before that concert, and it's February. So they had links to things that would be important to us. And again, didn't have to be long, didn't cost them a lot to do, but cute little clever graphic here, instead of just a plain email, and it worked. I bought lots of concert tickets in my days, and I just really appreciate it when they're thinking about me and my needs. Again, marathon running made me think of that, so I pulled that back up too.